So these are the real sounds of howler monkeys. Now, I don't think they sound like howls. I feel like they sound more like roars. It's really loud, right? Even from the recording. What do we think? What's it sound like to you guys? Spooky. Yeah, lots of you said spooky, creepy. So when they are making this sound, so here's a howler monkey making this sound. Okay. It can be heard from miles away. And of course, this is where they get their name. The loudest of all of the howler monkeys, because there's a few different types, like there's a red howler monkey, for example, but the black howler monkey is the loudest type. So they can be heard from miles away. Okay. So how does a little monkey make a sound like that? What do we think? Someone said they sound a bit like a demon or a madman. Yeah, it's pretty creepy. And the time when you will hear this sound is normally really early in the morning, like 4 a.m. So they like to do it super, super early in the morning. So that can be up to 140 decibels. But even the quieter howler monkeys are 90 decibels, which is very loud. To help you think about decibels, by the way, when people are just talking, like they're not shouting, they're not whispering, and we're just having a normal chatty conversation, our voices are normally between about 55 to 60 decibels when we're just talking normally. And then the black howler monkey can be 140 decibels. So you can see how much louder it is. Okay, so there is a special bone in like the throat of a howler monkey that helps it make these super spooky sounds. Okay, so that kind of like cup-shaped bone that the arrow is pointing to in the picture. This is a special bone. It kind of sits here in the howler monkey's throat. We also have one of these bones, but it is way, way smaller in our throat. You can actually feel this bone in your throat if you swallow and you're kind of lightly touching under here, you can feel the bone. It's kind of like a floating bone and it supports our tongue. But in howler monkeys, their version of this bone is like way bigger than ours, and it helps to kind of like make the sound louder because it's full of air. Okay, so can you guess what this bone is called? This special bone that helps them make the loud sounds. Is it a hyoid bone, a mandible, or a nasal bone? What do you think? What do we think? What's the name of this bone? So yeah, if you look at this in humans, you'll see it's like kind of like a like the shape of a letter U, or like a horseshoe shape, but it's much, much smaller in us. Okay. So this special bone is called the hyoid bone. So this is what kind of gives the howler monkeys this superpower. Look at this one. He's really going for it. He's even got his eyes closed. He looks like he's singing like a really emotional song. So these howler monkeys all gather in groups in the early morning, So they live in social groups of family members. So normally it's lots of family members living together. And the females, the girl monkeys, stay in that group normally their whole lives. So they stick around with other family members. The males, when they get old enough that they can look after themselves, they will normally leave the group and go to another one or start another one. So every morning, all of the members of the group of monkeys will all howl or roar together. That's what creates the really creepy sound, because it's a whole troop, which is the name of a group of monkeys. We call them a troop. It's all of them howling together. And the main reason why they do this is to tell other troops of nearby monkeys, this is our patch of land. So, you know, like how, for example, things like cats and dogs, they might scent mark to kind of say, this is my patch of land. Like a cat scent marking in the garden. Well, howler monkeys make this loud sound instead to kind of say, this is my patch of the forest. So even the females and the males, they will both howl. So all of them can do it. But sometimes the boys, the males, howl is the loudest. So what do you think is the very loudest animal on the planet then? So we already know that we've got some loud animals here, because I've already mentioned how, of course, howler monkeys, lions, roars, and whales can all make really loud sounds. But which one is the very loudest on the planet? What do you think? So loudest animal on the planet. So A, howler monkey, B, lion, C, sperm whale. And there are lots of animals here in the UK, our native wildlife, that makes strange sounds and loud sounds, like foxes. If anyone's ever heard foxes screaming, they make like a screaming sound at nighttime sometimes, normally in winter. We've got all our birds. We've got insects like crickets that make loud sounds by rubbing their wings and legs together. So it's really important for many, many different animals to use sounds for different things. It could be communication, so to tell each other things. It could be for hunting. It could be finding a mate. They do it for all sorts of things. So the answer was C, the sperm whale. So this type of whale, sperm whale, you can normally tell it's a sperm whale. I know a lot of the whales look very similar, but the sperm whale has this very kind of like rectangular shaped front of the head. It's very like a kind of straight line, and that's kind of a good sign that it's a sperm whale and not another sort of whale, like it's not a blue whale, for example. So these are not the biggest whales in the world, but they are the biggest toothed whales. So basically, these are the biggest of whales that actually have teeth. So sperm whales do have proper like pointy teeth. They only use them for eating things like squid and fish. They're not harmful to humans, but you can actually see the teeth in this picture. I always think they look really funny when you actually see them with their mouth open. So there's a sperm whale with its mouth open. And can you see on that bottom jaw little teeth? They're actually quite big teeth, but compared to the rest of the whale, they look quite small. Okay, but not all whales have teeth. Like if you think of a blue whale, which is the biggest whale on the planet, and the biggest animal on the planet, the blue whale doesn't have teeth. Instead, it has those, if you've ever seen whales that have like, it looks like hair in their mouth, like frilly stuff. It's called a baleen plate. And it's because they filter little tiny bits out of the water. They don't bite and chew things. So these are the biggest toothed whales. So sperm whales make sounds that are 236 decibels. So remember, even our super, super loud howler monkeys, okay, the loudest they can be, and that's the black howler monkey, which is the loudest species, 140 decibels, okay? Whereas the sperm whale can be 236 decibels. That is as loud or louder than things like a gunshot or a jet taking off. It is super, super loud. And other sperm whales can hear this sound from 10 miles away. So it travels a really, really long way as well. But the sound is very, very different to like the howler monkey sound or bird song because they make a clicking sound, basically. It's just like lots and lots of short little clicks. And the way that they use this sound is something called echolocation. So has anyone heard of this before? Echolocation? Do we know what that means, or do we know any other animals that might use it? Think of what an echo is. If something echoes, what do we think that means? Yes, so a few of you, Evelyn, Tatiana, have said bats. Yes, so many bats use something called echolocation. Many underwater animals, especially whales and dolphins, use it too. Basically, how it works is that they make a sound, and they make this sound in the air or in the water. They can do it in either. So a bat would do it in the air when they're flying. A whale would do it under the water when they're swimming. They make a sound, normally like a little squeak or a clicking sound if it's a whale. And remember that sound makes sound waves. Even though we can't see them, the sound waves are still there. Okay, so the sound waves come out of the animal that's making them, and they will go out and they will bounce off things to create like the echo part. And then they come back to the ears of the animal that made the sound, and it tells them where things are. So it's especially good if they're somewhere where it's not really easy to see, because it's kind of like being able to see better, but with your hearing. So, for example, bats, a lot of people think bats are blind, but that's not really true. But a lot of bats, especially small nocturnal bats, don't have very good eyesight, especially when they're hunting at nighttime. So they use echolocation. They make squeaky sounds, one so quiet we can't even hear. And those sounds bounce off things like other bats or off walls or off moths that are flying around. And they go back to the ear of the bat and they tell it where that thing is, how far away it is. So they stop them from bumping into things. And sperm whales do that underwater. So they make these clicking sounds, and then those sound waves travel through the water. They bounce off things, like maybe it's another whale or maybe it's a fish they might want to eat. And then it comes back to the ears of the sperm whale. And it's very clever. It's like having a sense. You know how we have a lot of senses in common with most other animals, like being able to see and hear and smell and taste. But this is like an extra sense, really, being able to echolocate that not all animals can do. So other than being the loudest animal in the world, sperm whales also have the biggest brain of any animal, like at all ever. Their brains are even bigger than blue whales, even though blue whales are bigger than them. And I think you can kind of tell that they've got big brains when you see a picture of them, because again, they've kind of got a really big head to fit that really big brain in. The other reason why the front of their head, like their forehead and their nose, is so big is because that it's filled with it's got like a kind of like a compartment inside the front of their head, and it's filled with this waxy, oily stuff. And this kind of helps to resonate, make their sounds louder and more powerful. So it's another reason why they're so loud. Okay, so moving on, still underwater, but a much, much smaller animal. we have this one. This is called a pistol shrimp. Okay, so what do we think? How does it make its sound? So it makes a snap, snap, snap sound, but a very loud one. It sounds almost a little bit like clicking your fingers. Okay, but it can be very loud, especially if you're underwater and you're a small fish or something. It can be loud enough to kill a fish if it's next to the shrimp. So what body parts or what do you think this little shrimp is doing to make this sound? What do you think? What do you notice when you look at the body of this shrimp? He's got one really big arm, hasn't he? So the other arm isn't hiding. It's just that pistol shrimps have one really big arm and one really small arm. It's like if somebody did weightlifting, but they just lifted weights on one arm. And one got really big and muscly and the other one stayed really small. That's what pistol shrimps look like. So they always have one really big pincer and one much smaller one. And the really, really big one, they use to kind of make a snapping motion, okay? But it's not just that makes the sound. They make the snap and they do it so fast that it creates like a big bubble in the water. And the bubble gets bigger really quickly and then it collapses. And when this happens, it happens so fast and with so much force just from the sound that they've made underwater. Remember, it makes things vibrate, that it even can convert sound into light. So sometimes this makes flashes of light. How cool is that? And this is 218 decibels. So it's louder than a lion's roar and it's louder than the howler monkeys. And it's not far off the sperm whale. So yeah, so they snap their claws super quickly. This creates big water bubbles. The bubbles get big, then they collapse, and this can create flashes of light and then big sounds as well. And this can be so powerful that it's been known sometimes to break glass. And like you can hear it if you sometimes people keep pistol shrimps as pets, especially a type called the tiger pistol shrimp, because you might notice that some of the pictures when you look at pistol shrimps, sometimes you can get slightly different colors or shapes or sizes. These two are very cool because they're like see-through, aren't they? You can actually see like their organs inside because they're see-through. Yes, the skin is transparent, someone has said. Yeah. That's helpful for them because it means that they blend in with the water much more easily because they're see-through. But what they do with this sound is they wait until a little fish gets close. And if they make this bubble and this sound right next to a fish, it's so loud it can kill a fish, even quite big fish. So it will like stun them, which means stop them moving and then kill them. And it means the pistol shrimp can eat them, grab them and eat them more easily. So these guys live in warm waters naturally. So places like around Australia and Japan. Okay, so moving away from the ocean, our next animal that we're going to talk a little bit about is this very cute little frog. I know some of you guys will know I absolutely love frogs. One of my favorites. Very, very underrated animals, I think, frogs. And there's so many different types, and they have some really cool like adaptations. So this little frog, look how cute he is. This is a koki, and they live on some islands of Puerto Rico. So they live on these islands, like you can see there's pictures. So like tropical, warm sort of environment. And they are the most common frog of those islands. So there's loads of these frogs. There's like thousands and thousands and thousands of them. They're almost like the unofficial, like, national animal there. And for such a teeny tiny little animal, they have a really loud song. So the male frog can make a sound that's 96 decibels. So it is just the males who make the sound. The females normally don't really sing. So we're going to listen to what a male coqui frog sounds like. This one's definitely not spooky. I think this sound is actually very, very sweet. So let's listen to it together. Okay, well, great recording that as well. What do we notice about the coqui's sounds? It is cute, isn't it? Aurelius is so cute. Do we notice anything about it? Does sound like a whistle, doesn't it? Where do we think it gets its name? Coqui. It's actually singing its own name, isn't it? Coqui. So that's where it got its name from. The other thing that I always think about this frog is I don't think it really sounds like a frog. I feel like if I heard that sound in the rainforest, I would probably think it was some sort of bird, some sort of tropical bird. It doesn't sound like what you expect a frog to sound like. It's very, very cool. But it is a frog. It's a little coqui. And another really, really cool thing about the noise that this frog makes is that scientists who were studying these frogs even found out that the first bit of the call, so the co bit, is the thing that keeps other males away from this frog's patch of land. So, you know, like keeping their territory. So saying, go away, other frogs, this is my bit of land. That's very important for a lot of male animals. They need to have their patch of the forest and they need to kind of keep other animals away from it. They kind of want to rule that bit of land. So that's their territory. So the co bit of the call, the first bit, that's kind of for that. And then the key part is what attracts the females. It's what helps them find a mate so they can make baby frogs. So they actually found out, like, each note of the sound has a different job, which I just think is so cool that they found that out. Super, super cool. Okay, so we're going to learn some more about some birds next. I think we can't talk about the sounds of animals without thinking about birds. Birds make so many beautiful sounds and amazing sounds. But what do you think is the loudest bird ever?